So my name is
Great.
Vasilena. I'm the project manager for Single Step, and I'm joined here by my colleagues, Dr. Mumciobaev, our sexual health program manager, and Maria, who's our intern. And our colleague Konstantin also took part in creating this presentation. He's our HR manager, but he's not here today, unfortunately. So to tell you something about Single Step Foundation really quickly, we were established in 2016 in Sofia, Bulgaria. Our main mission is to support, motivate, and empower LGBTIQ young people and their families, friends, and allies. And we do that by offering comprehensive confidential services via an online chat with volunteers. We have online and face-to-face support groups, and we also have the very first multifunctional community space in Bulgaria that's called The Steps, which is very supportive of LGBTIQ young people. The open call is particularly relevant to our field of work because our experience in the past 5 years has really shown us that trans and non-binary people are practically invisible in the conservative Bulgarian society. So they do face extreme segregation and difficulties in all areas of their lives, such in their education, at the labor market, during their transition period, so on and so on. Just to talk about the main objectives of our research, our main aim was to achieve better visibility of trans and non-binary community, both in the area of research and also on the labor market. This is one of the very first research projects in Bulgaria that is focused on these questions, and we thought it would be extremely important if we focus on important indicators, such as the quality of life of trans and non-binary people and their access to employment opportunities. So our research project has two surveys. One is aimed at trans and non-binary people, and the other one is aimed at employers. After completing our data collection process with trans and non-binary people, we also facilitated one very successful focus group with co-researchers and members of the trans community. And we are now actively collecting data with our survey for employers and planning a second focus group to discuss the preliminary results with our co-researchers and more members of the trans and non-binary community in Bulgaria. Some of which my colleague Muncho will share with you today. Our progress with employers has been a little bit less limited. We currently have collected data from 18 employers from 70 different industries with various sizes. The preliminary data shows that there are some certain conditions existing within the constructs of GDPR and the Bulgarian Labor Code, which are related to working with trans and non-binary people. But overall, there is really a lack of understanding for the needs of trans and non-binary employees, as well as the separation between the general LGBTQ subjects and the trans community. So definitely this project will absolutely benefit the employers and their need for more education. And we are thinking that our research will also have some impact on certain institutional changes that could be made in the future. And a quick update, we will continue our data collection until the end of July, and we hope we will reach more employers. We're aiming for 25. And I will pass this on to my colleague Montiel, who will share some of the preliminary results. Montiel?
As you can see, the survey ran for a little over a month. In the month of May, in the first few days of June, reaching out to 112 participants, trans and non-binary people who are located all over the country of Bulgaria. The age range of the studied population is between 16 and 48 years of age. Some of the preliminary results shown here. This is the gender distribution, the gender identity of the participants. Majority are trans men, followed by trans women and non-binary people. And little less significant are the other few gender identities shown in the graph that you see on the screen. 44% are the trans men. This is the the age distribution on the chart. it's shown first the total number of participants, and then what percentage of the total number they are. You see the largest group are young people, predominantly young people between the age of 19 23, 38%, and the group of 16 18 years old are a little a bit close to 20%. So more than half of the participants are young people under the age of 30. The employment status of the participants in the study, as shown here, tells us that almost half of them have permanent contract, and another half are unemployed, which is a very large rate of unemployment in the trans community. And this is one of the issues that we're trying to address with this project, and using the data for advocacy purposes to decrease the number of unemployed people in the trans community. So, absolutely expected is the fact that most people have felt that they need to hide their gender identity from their coworkers at the workplace. 75% have affirmative answer to this question. Another important part of the survey is the access to healthcare services. The process of transition includes medical interventions. A little more than half of the respondents have sought medical services related to their gender identity. The other half have not. Similarly, here we have a proportion of people, equal sizes of the two groups, who have started their medical transition, and the others who are planning to but haven't started yet. There is a very small fraction, a tenth of all participants who are not planning to go through a medical procedures for the transition. Just as expected, the beginning of the medical transition for trans and non-binary people has a positive impact on the quality of life of people. The instrument that we use for measuring the quality of life is a standardized instrument of World Health Organization, and it's a large questionnaire that covers various fields of life and its quality. And we can see an overwhelming majority of people saying that their quality of life has improved since they started the transition process. Majority of respondents are already on hormone replacement therapy. This is usually the first step of the medical procedures for transitioning. Unfortunately, many of them have not been under medical supervision, which we'll see in the following slides. There we go. 77% have not been prescribed their hormone replacement therapy by a doctor. Only 23% confirm that's the case, but the majority have um, found their hormones either online or in various different ways, which we see here. We asked them, how did you get the hormones since they haven't been under medical supervision? And you can see only 3% of respondents say that their hormones have been prescribed by a doctor. Um, Majority, 62%, have bought them from a pharmacy without a prescription, which is generally speaking a violation of the law to provide this medication without a prescription. Some people got those from friends or borrowed a prescription from a friend. Sadly, 30%, a third of all participants, bought them online, which is extremely dangerous, and it's a great risk to their own health. Just as expected, um, too many people do not have medical follow-up after they started their hormone therapy. Only 45% almost half of the participants, but still that's a very low number. We want the majority of trans people to be under medical supervision to ensure that hormone therapy does not do any harm on any other organs and systems of the body. The quality of life as perceived by the respondents themselves looks not very optimistic. Half of the respondents said that this was neither bad nor good. That's a rather neutral answer that looks rather more grim to me. The ones who gave a positive reaction is very small. Only 7% said their quality of life is good, which is a very low number, and we're seeking to improve this by improving access to healthcare services, to the labor market, and eventually see an improved quality of life. And I think we're right at the end of our numbers. There are greater number of questions that we've asked, but we're just giving you a sample here of preliminary results.
So we definitely have seen a lot of benefits working with the citizen social science methods, and definitely the opportunity to engage with employers and the community members through workshops has been very, very useful. And it would be great if we could implement that into more of our future research work. We do think that using the approach that we do not know best is very useful to overcome bias. And the conduction of workshop has definitely increased the trust and engagement with our foundation, which we found was very beneficial. We did face some challenges when using the citizen social science methods, and some of them have been that we've had a really limited number of industries that we could approach, and we have found that working with institutions can be very difficult due to the way our society is and because it's very conservative, so it's quite challenging. We also found it challenging that we had to accept new working methods and new perspectives on our research methods, but this was quite new to us. But we do think it was quite useful. And last but not least, because we needed to organize additional steps around creating the focus groups and planning the workshops, it definitely increased our project duration, but we think that it was for the better for sure. And I've shared a very important quote from one of our focus groups, which we found was quite nice, and it can definitely show the impact that this project is making on the life of trans and non-binary people.
Representativity could be seen from many different angles, and one of them is sociology and statistics, for instance. So, in any survey, uh, it is not too difficult to determine what amount of participants is representative for a certain community. Since we're working with a very small community that is very invisible, as they call it, for research work, the 112 participants we had, we believe were representative enough for the community. Furthermore, many of them come from different parts of the country. So it's not just people in the capital. Majority, yes, but we have a good number of people from the countryside, also from small towns and villages. So representativeness, I think, has been achieved. It hasn't been too much of an issue. Obviously, being a very specific target group, we had to use very specific targeted channels to communicate with the population. We can't just simply post it on the website or on social media and expect participants to find it and fill out the questionnaire. We had to reach out personally to community members, community activists. The co-researchers who are part of our team also did their part in reaching out to other peers, community members to get to this number that we have. So
It's also on relation of communication of all these efforts that you have been working on. And I think that and this links with the comment from Katia, no, that is also about representativity, but also is about having a louder voice, no, in several spaces. And I don't know if you think that there are some specific comments or thoughts that you might have in mind, because I think that your work that you have been doing, at least for the citizen science community, needs to be heard. Okay.
Our overall goal with the research is not just purely for the sake of research and having underrepresented communities included in research work. Our greater goal is to advocate with the Ministry of Health, because we do a lot of advocacy work to establish a clear pathway for trans and non-binary people to go through their transition process. That would require medical guideline for hormone replacement therapy, guidelines for, as they used to call them, gender assignment surgical interventions. There's a better term nowadays. However, that would involve a lot of stakeholders: the Ministry of Health, the scientific societies in different fields, endocrinology, obstetrics, etc. And usually, institutions like to work with numbers, and it's always better if we can present data when we ask for policy changes. We've done something similar with HIV self testing, where we piloted an innovative method of home self-testing, and then we advocated for the Ministry of Health to include it in the National HIV program. Similarly to this, we'll be advocating for guidelines for transition that would improve access to people, and that's our ultimate goal. On the other hand, access to the labor market is something that usually affects the quality of life, and making employers more sensitive to the needs of those communities would improve their access to the labor market, but also would improve their performance at work if they feel included, acknowledged, respected, and when their rights are protected at work. So this is twofold of what we're trying to achieve on a greater scale in advocacy work: access to better access to the labor market and medical procedures for transitioning.